Hey, it is Kenny of Kenny's Audiophile Record Reviews. Thank you very much for viewing my video. As always, if you're new to my videos, please like and subscribe. I sincerely appreciate that. In this video, I'm going to review two live jazz albums. One of the albums, which I review in the second review of this video, was recommended by one of my viewers named Todd. I'm going to get at that in the second review. He said I need to give this album some love. So I give a brief commentary on that album in the second review of this video. But the first album I'm going to review is a live album that was originally recorded in 1966 and released in 2024. It's called Forces of Nature, Live at Skugs. Features McCoy Tyner piano, Joe Henderson saxophone, Henry Grimes bass, and the great Jack Dejohnette drums. Issued on the Blue Note label in 2024, this 1966 live recording. I'll show you inside the gatefold as well. And the beautiful, famous Blue Note record label. According to the notes inside the booklet that came with this, and I'll show you the booklet in a second, Slugs got the name because fights occasionally broke out at that venue, so they named it Slugs. Here is the very nice booklet that came with a 2 LP set. Again, it's a 2 LP set, 33 RPM records, 180 gram vinyl, mastered by Matthew Luthans. It states here, I'll read this to you before I show you the rest of the inside of the booklet. These are notes by Jack Dejohnette, but it says here, the fortunate thing about this recording, the master tape disappeared, but early on I asked Orville, the gentleman who recorded this session, I believe, if he could give me a 7.5-inch IPS copy of that show, and he did. Thanks to that 7.5-inch reel, we have the gift of this music. Notes by Jack Dejohnette. Again, there's nice notes by Jack Dejohnette, Matthew Luthans, the mastering engineer. Brief thanks from the Joe Henderson estate, the McCoy Tyner estate. Again, also notes by Matthew Luthans, and also some pretty good pictures as well. Very nice booklet by Blue Note. I initially started listening to this record on my, actually I listened to the whole record on my Rega P8 turntable or Apheta 3 cartridge, and also I listened to it on my Technics SP-15 turntable and Hana ML cartridge. And I'm going to give a score of the sound and performance in a minute, or a few minutes, but I'll show you the songs on the back. The first song, In and Out, takes up the entirety of Disc 1, Side 1. It's a very nice straight-ahead jazz performance by McCoy Tyner and Joe Henderson, Henry Grimes, and Jack Dejohnette, with spectacular, or great, I should say, solos by Joe Henderson, McCoy Tyner piano, and fabulous drumming by Jack Dejohnette. For the most part, on this record, McCoy Tyner is in the right speaker, and the rest of the musicians occupy around the center of the soundstage, in that vicinity, with the drums, the echo and delay of the drums spreading occasionally further than that. But again, In and Out is a great straight-ahead jazz piece. I really enjoyed that. And the second song on Disc 1, a beautiful piece, even in the booklet. Jack Dejohnette states this, is that We Will Be Together was a beautiful jazz composition. It's a slower tempo jazz piece, fabulously performed by Joe Henderson, great piano play by McCoy Tyner, and there's a nice drum solo on that piece by Henry Grimes, if I recall. Really, that might be my favorite song on this album, We Will Be Together. The song Taking Off is a great performance. There was an issue with the sound I'm going to get to in a second, but it was a very nice performance by Henderson. At the end of the song, Jack Dejohnette has a great solo at the end of the song. I really enjoyed his awesome, spectacular, and just dimensional jazz solo at the end of Taking Off. What a great jazz piece that song Taking Off is. But there's an issue with the sound. When I was first listening to this record on my Rega P8 turntable with a Apheta 3 cartridge, I did notice some distortion on that song. So I said to myself, I'm going to listen to the entire album again on my Technics SP-15 turntable with a Hana ML cartridge. And I noticed the same distortion in spots on that song, Taking Off. Again, the performance on that song were great. It really were. But it had that distortion. And after I listened to the album, I further read in the booklet, there's notes by Matthew Luthans in here. Let's see if I can find it. And he talks about, the issue with that particular song. It says here, we were not completely without technical hurdles to overcome, including many instantaneous, fleeting dropouts, but most of these could be mitigated digitally. So there were some digital corrections on this record. Copied to tape, spliced back into the analog reels, hopefully seamlessly. Also, the song Taking Off, the song I'm talking about, had a subtle problem in the bass causing intermodulation distortion in spots, which cannot be truly dodged. So he mentioned the issues with that song in this booklet. And you notice that distortion a little bit when you're listening to Taking Off, I should say. That kind of slightly marred or ruined the performance because of the distortion you hear when, the bass and the saxophone are playing. It kind of like affects the sound of the saxophone and other instruments as well. Side D on record 2, those recordings are great. The songs, The Believer and Isotope, those are perhaps the best recorded songs on this record. Overall, the performance was quite good. I really enjoyed the performances, the straight ahead jazz performances on this record, the beautiful slower tempo pace of We Will Be Together, the second song on side 2. I give the performance a 9. A nice performance on this record. The sound, however, is different. I don't think the sound of the piano, which was in the right speaker, and the bass were recorded that well on this recording. It's something in the tape, not much you can do about it. I don't think they were recorded that well. At times, the bass was too much in the distance, and you couldn't hear it as clearly as the rest of the instruments, mainly McCoy Tyner, Joe Henderson, and Jack Dejohnette as drums. The bass and the piano were not as clear and dimensional as the saxophone, Joe Henderson, and the drums, Jack Dejohnette. Especially on McCoy Tyner's solos. It just wasn't as clear and dimensional as a saxophone. So I'm going to discount the sound. I'm going to give the sound a 7. The performance a 9, the sound a 7. I love and enjoy this great jazz performance by McCoy Tyner piano, Joe Henderson saxophone, Harry Grimes bass, Jack Dejohnette. A masterful live jazz performance. Performance a 9, the sound a 7. And a nice job by Matthew Luthans. Some of these issues are in the master tape, and sometimes you just simply can't do much about it, but a great job by Matthew Luthans, mastering engineer. The second album I'm going to speak of is a famous album that most of you have, but I'm giving my commentary on this album and a brief history of this trio, the Ramsey Lewis Trio, the In Crowd. Todd out there wanted me to give this album some love, so I'll give a brief commentary on this album and what happened to some of the members of this group and a famous member who joined this group in a couple of years after this was recorded. The Ramsey Lewis In Crowd features L.D. Young, Ramsey Lewis, and Red Holt. This is a very famous album. Actually won a Grammy in 1966 at the Grammys for Best Instrumental Jazz Performance at the Grammys in 1966. It was issued in 1965. The song, The In Crowd, the instrumental song, was a smash hit. What a great performance. Before I go on with this record, one of my viewers months and months ago compared the vibe or groove of this record to this record, which came out a couple of years later, a year later, the Cannonball Adderley Quintet, Mercy, 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 live at the club. The infectious live vibe and groove of this album, he compared to the In Crowd album. That's a great comparison because two very great live performances. The two songs I love on this album the most, and almost on par with each other. The song Spartacus, the love theme, famously performed by Yusef Lateef. Yusef Lateef has the best version of that song. However, the performance on this live record, Spartacus, is great. You should check it out if you hadn't heard Spartacus on this album. The Ramsey Lewis Trio, the In Crowd. Spartacus is a great version of Spartacus, a live version of Spartacus, and obviously the In Crowd. That's a very nice, infectious performance. You hear the crowd getting into it. I love the album version of this record, be quite honest with you. Overall, the performance on this album is quite great, and it's a very enjoyable album, I must say. This was recorded live in 1965 in Washington, D.C. I'm going to give the performance an 8.5 and the sound an 8.5. What a great record this is. I highly recommend it. But soon after this record, I think the Young and Holt was still on the Ramsey Lewis Trio on this Hang On Ramsey album. This is a live recording as well. It was recorded live at the Lighthouse in Hermosa Beach, California. I've been to that venue several times back in the day. I've seen Etta James at that venue, Sarah Vaughan at that venue. But after the release of this album, Young and Holt left the group and had their own group, the Young Holt Trio, which they changed to the Young Holt Unlimited. And they had a smash hit called Soulful Strut. I have that album in my collection. It's just one of their other albums. Is a nice picture of Young and Holt in the gatefold. But one of their replacements was a legendary musician that went on to form Earth, Wind, and Fire. That musician is the late great Maurice White, the great musician visionary. His Earth, Wind, and Fire albums were over the top awesome, but he was a part of the Ramsey Lewis Trio, and I'll show you some of the albums which he appeared on. And he is in the back of this cover. Maurice White is right there. He was a drummer in the trio. He also appeared on this album. I got to listen to this album because there's a version of Herbie Hancock's Maiden Voyage. I hadn't listened to this album in a long time. I definitely got to listen to this real soon. The Ramsey Lewis Trio, featuring Maurice White as well. I'm going to listen to that one real soon. He's on this one. There's a great song on here. I think it's called China Gate. I love China Gate on this one. Yeah, China Gate on this, the movie album. Maurice White was on that one. He was on the Wade in the Water album. As well as Going Latin, Ramsey Lewis. Ramsey Lewis Trio. And at times, like I said, for some time it featured the late great Maurice White as drummer. If you have the Live at Slugs album or the Ramsey Lewis Trio, the In Crowd album, please leave your comments in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for viewing my video. God bless, strong love, and as always, keep the peace worldwide.